in your testimony, you had spoke about a time period where like you thought about committing suicide. Did that contemplated suicide actually bring forth life?
It actually did, in kind of a way. You know, when you go through that time of where you're feeling really, really depressed and you reach that point, you're kind of clouded with, you know, a lot of questions, a lot of confusion. You're not sure and you feel hopeless and you want to give up. And that's how I felt at that time. I didn't believe God loved me. I let the enemy get in my head, and I believed the lies that the enemy and my ex now was telling me at the time. And so, you know, when I did that and that hook broke, at first I was kind of upset at God because I was like, well, why didn't you just let me go? This is ridiculous. But later, and as I look back on retrospective, it really brought a new sense of life to me because it allowed me to realize that God actually saved my life because, well, not only does he love and care about me and he doesn't want to see me take my life like that, but at the same time, he had a deeper purpose for me that I just didn't understand at the time. He wants to use me, and he did that in a way of saying, you're not done yet, Faith. This is not where you're going to end. I got bigger plans for you. And I share that testimony with other people who are going through that same feeling of just saying, you know, don't give up. You know, God still has a purpose for you and a plan for you. And God, most certainly above anything else, does love you. And his love isn't just a conditional love. It's very, very unconditional.
After that first startup failed, just went into a very strong depression. Even after I started the marketing company, just still depressed about that failure, thinking I'm not enough. And I'd always go through these, like 1 month good, kind of more manic, I would say, like 1 month good, hope, like great, everything's going well, and then 2 months where I'd slip into a depression, or 2 months good and then 1 month bad, a depression. And so I just got to this point where I was like so sick of feeling that way that I just said, like when I was in that depression, I just said, like, I'm so sick of this, and I'm gonna burn this out of me. I'm gonna burn it out. And I do not recommend this therapy or strategy or whatever that I came up with for myself to anyone. But I basically that month, like whatever thought that came in my head that was negative, I would add on to it. It wasn't just, oh, you're dumb, you're like the stupidest person in the world, you're this. And I would just, like, whatever negative thought, I would just add on to it and just really be mean to myself, like mentally. And it kind of culminated in this weekend that my partner at the time, she was away, she was visiting family and stuff like that. And I said, like, this is the weekend. This is the weekend. I'm going like full in. And I didn't plan for any of this, I would say. I was just like, I knew, like, this is kind of the epitome. This is like the peak of what was all to transpire. And that weekend, I just drank like crazy, and popping pills. I because of my previous back surgery and back pain at the time, I was getting like tons of Oxycontin, basically from that for the pain, but just like popping those pills, drinking, just being just really mean to myself, looking myself in the mirror and just like shouting at myself, like just yeah, it's like nothing that I'm proud about, and it's an embarrassing story, but I'm more than happy to share it because I know, like, people have dealt with these things. But kind of culminated, I think it was like a Saturday night. Spent, Friday and Saturday just drinking, being mean to myself, and just like physically abusive to myself. So like punching myself, just being cruel.
And I can relate to that too, that a dying night where I like wanted to commit suicide. I was doing the same thing.
Yeah. So just like, just being as awful to myself as possible, and really hoping like the pills or something would take me out. And it ended up the night with the gun in my mouth. It's still like every time I talk about this is like hard. Ended up with the gun in my mouth and I just like crying, and I just couldn't pull the trigger. And I was almost like mad at myself that I couldn't. But I don't know what happened after that, put the gun down, but I went to sleep at some point and woke up in the morning and just felt like just a train wreck, just felt so awful. And went to the mirror and went to the bathroom to like wash my face and just try to revive myself. And just my face hurts, like just everything hurt, just felt like awful. And I remember like washing my face and then looking up in the mirror, seeing myself, and like for the first time in my life, like this voice, kind of that knowing that happened in Nepal and a couple times other in my life, but this knowing that kind of came to me and just said like, why are you so awful to this wonderful person? Why are you so awful to this wonderful person? And whatever's going on in your life, you don't need to add to it, you know? Like life's already hard. It's just like that's life. Life is that, like there's good, there's bad, there's all this stuff, but you don't need to add to the bad with your mental chatter and like being mean to yourself and abusive to yourself. You don't need to do that. And just that coming to me, and I just broke down crying again. And from that moment forward, like my life changed, and it was just whatever happened after that, like my whole attitude completely changed, where just like things would happen, I'd make a mistake or things not going well, and I wouldn't add to it anymore. I stopped that mental chatter of being mean to myself. Like if you look at like where that came from, it came from my brothers doing it, and like we were young, we don't know any better. I don't blame them, but like they were the picking on me and stuff like that. And when they left home, then I started doing it with their absence. I started doing it to myself. So after that moment though, my whole life had changed, and I stopped talking to myself that way. And so that was a foundational moment, a huge change that really brought me a good portion of the person I am now.
What is the Somerset County Suicide Prevention Task Force? What is it?
The task force is just a grassroots volunteer-based organization that was formed back in 2019. It's comprised of, advocates, loss survivors, attempt survivors, people working in mental health and human services. And we work to just make sure that people are aware of resources available to them. We provide training and education, and we just try to be a resource for individuals for prevention, intervention, and postvention services.
Awesome. So how did you get involved?
Jesper and I, who co-chairs the task force with me, he and I, along with some other individuals, were working on an advocacy project to secure McNally Bridge. And so we had been working on that project for a couple of years. We finally were able to get the barriers placed on the bridge, and we were kind of thinking about like, what can we do next? And really looking at what the needs were locally. And we realized that Somerset County, which was a county that we both lived in and, worked in, did not have a task force. So we thought, why not reach out and see if we could get something started here? So we sent out some emails and just, contacted some people in the field, and it just kind of grew from there.
Tell us about McNally Bridge. A lot of people don't know about McNally Bridge.
Sure. So McNally Bridge connects Somerset and Cambria County there on 219, and it's just been a site for suicides for years. Unfortunately. And, there's been a lot of talk in the past years about, what can we do? I think at one point there was a petition that was going around that someone had started And there was always just kind of like some generic reason to why, you know, nothing could be done. Like, oh, we wouldn't be able to remove snow or whatever the reason might be. So we were like, we really need to push for this because it just seems so tangible. It seems like something that could easily be done to really, you know, prevent people from dying. And so that's kind of how the project started. And we did so much research on barriers for, you know, what you would call a suicide bridge, a bridge where people were continuously going to. And there was just so much research that supported barriers on a bridge like that. And so we're really grateful that we were able to get that accomplished and that that is in place now.
Right. Yeah. And then we had talked about too that the reason that you had actually got involved with this is because something had touched your heart too in the suicide prevention arena.
Well, yeah. So, you know, the McNally, well, I guess I should backtrack. Even before McNally Bridge, I had been kind of, you know, working on some community groups that had a focus on suicide prevention, just because, you know, I had lost some classmates and some friends throughout my life to suicide. And it was just something that I thought always needed some more attention and something that wasn't being talked about enough. So I went and got trained in suicide prevention, QPR actually, and was doing some of that, and then started into the McNally Bridge advocacy project. But then after we had the McNally Bridge secured, I actually lost my 19-year-old cousin to a bridge suicide, not on McNally Bridge, but on another bridge. So so then, you know, it impacted me very personally from there. And, you know, and that has kind of been my driving force since, to just continue to do what we do and why it's so important. And I try to share that story because I think that sharing that story probably helps other people.
Right. There's a lot of people out there dealing with loss from that.
Yeah.
How does the Somerset County Suicide Prevention Task Force, how do they help people?
Well, I think there's a number of ways that we help people. We do a lot of trainings and education. So, you know, we'll go into different settings. It could be a training for just people in the community. It could be training for professionals, schools, whatever it might be.
Is that training like how to, you know, get out of those dark places, or is that training like how to help people that know somebody that might be wanting to commit suicide, or is that all the above?
Well, yeah, we offer a variety of different training topics. So, you know, it can be specific to whatever the need is, but
Right.
most of them really focus on identifying somebody in crisis and kind of how to respond to that and get them to the appropriate resources. I think that people are very intimidated by the idea of helping someone in crisis. You know, sometimes we notice that something might be off, but we might be afraid to say something because it's terrifying. Like, what do we do if we ask somebody and they actually say yes? You know, then I'm not equipped for that. So we try to work through some of that because really anybody can help in a situation. You know, you don't have to be a licensed counselor. You don't have to be a mental health professional to be able to recognize the signs and get that person to, you know, the appropriate help. So we do a lot of those kind of trainings, advocacy projects, you know, like the McNally Bridge, things like that, that we can do in the community to just kind of help prevent suicides from occurring. One thing that we're currently working on is a gunshot project, which is just kind of to give people education on, you know, resources struggling, because yeah, you know, people are dying at very high rates of gunshot wounds. And so how can we do that? How can we provide some education? Or, maybe if someone purchases a gun, they also get information on, crisis or something like that. So, different advocacy projects like that. And then there's a lot of things that we want to do with the task force. We want to, be able to start some support groups for loss survivors and attempt survivors. So that's definitely something that we're working towards. And we also want to create what is called a loss team. And that's kind of a response team when a suicide occurs. So if there's been a suicide, maybe that loss team shows up for the family, the surviving family, and offers immediate support. So those are all kind of things that, we're working towards, and we hope to be able to offer here in Somerset County.
That's awesome. Yeah. If you see somebody that struggling, how do you recommend approaching that?
Well, I think the most important thing is to listen. A lot of times we want to fix something for someone, but a problem can't always be fixed. So I think it's important to just listen and create a safe space where someone doesn't feel judged, and let them talk. And we always say that if you think someone's struggling, you should directly ask them if they're thinking about suicide. And usually if someone is and they're asked directly, they will answer you honestly. So we always tell people to, just directly ask the question. And if they are, then, you want to get them to the appropriate resource. So maybe you stay with them and make a phone call and stay with them until, crisis arrives, or maybe you go along with them to the hospital or whatever that might look like, or be. Maybe you do a 3-way call with them to 988. But just kind of supporting that person in that moment and staying there with them, and getting them connected to the appropriate help.
Right. Yeah, I advocate so much, and I think it's so important for people to understand, because you'll see people kind of kick around the happy person, but that person with that big smile on their face could be the one that's struggling the most.
Yeah, I mean, we never really know what anyone is going through or what kind of, hardships that we might be carrying. And people are really, really good at hiding some of that.
Right.
And, I like to think about it too, as we're kind of all just one phone call or situation away from maybe being in that exact same spot ourselves.
Right.
People like to think that could never happen to me, but
Yeah.
We never know what tomorrow holds. And so I think not only is it important for us to check on others, but it's important for us to be able to recognize those feelings in ourselves.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, we don't know what somebody's going through. Just because they're not telling us doesn't mean that, what they're giving us is all that it is. So
Right.
it's important that we love one another for sure. You guys, do you take donations?
We do. Yeah. So we, we all kind of work full-time jobs. This is just kind of our passion. We certainly don't get paid for this. So that's how we operate purely on donations and fundraisers. So we try to hold fundraisers throughout the year, and we take donations as well. So people can donate at any time. We actually have some very generous individuals who set up like a monthly donation. Maybe they have, some money come in every month, and that's great, but any dollar helps.
Right.
Any dollar helps. So yeah, that's how we function. And fortunately, we live in a community that has been extremely generous with us, and believes in our mission and really helps us do what we do. So
That's beautiful.
yeah.
So how do people find you to make donations?
You can find us on Facebook, the Somerset County Suicide Prevention Task Force. The link to donate is on there. You can also email us if you ever want more information, but the best way really, I think, is to go through our Facebook page. Our contact information, our email address is on there. The donation link is on there. So I think even if you don't have a Facebook page, I think if you Google us, our Facebook page should show up and you should be able to get at least that information.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Good to see you. I'm so glad that you were able to come hang out with us that day. It was really fun to you and to be able to, share all of that with you. So thank you for supporting us.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's fun.
We're really excited to hold this event today for Suicide Prevention Month and to raise funds for our local suicide prevention task force. Our task force was founded back in 2019. We saw that there was a need here in Somerset County, and so a group of us came together to really put a focus on Somerset County and provide the resources, education, and awareness that wasn't here before. So you being here today supports our mission and allows us to continue doing the work that we do right here in Somerset County. So thank you so much for that.
You say I'm not alone?
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you tell us about that?
That was a real difficult time as well. Me and my wife were actually youth group leaders at the church we went to. And we had a young man named Jeffrey, and he was hilarious. He always liked to make people laugh and goofing off, and he's just hilarious. Life of the party for sure. But in 2020, 2 days after Easter, we found out that he had took his own life. I was like, man. At first, my wife, I worked night shift, so I was asleep, and my wife comes in and she told me, I was like, what? And I was kind of out of it. I was like, no. So I kind of like lay back down. She told me again. I like jumped up out of bed real quick, and sure enough, we found out that he had took his own life that day. So I wrote that. I didn't know that it would help other people because, like I said, I write stuff based off of what I feel and what I go through. But that, just from his family, they've told me that it's helped them work through that situation. The first verse, it says, there's so many things I don't understand. We go through life, we don't understand a lot of things, but in the end, God he fights our battles for us. And
Right.
We're never alone. He tells us multiple times in the Bible that we're never alone, and he'll never leave us or forsake us. So
Yeah.
I kind of not only wrote that song for myself, but it was able to help that family, and not just that family, but it's other people have heard it, and I've gotten responses on YouTube about how it's helped them through depression and stuff. So it's so neat to hear that.
I dealt with probably like all my life up until 34, just extremely depressed and hating my life and completely miserable. And it took that point too of just like complete, like, I can't be who I am anymore because I'm dead already. And so like I feel like oftentimes, we hit those points where it's like that's whenever there's like a birth taking place, but people will take that as like, well, there's nothing to live for anymore, and take their lives. And I'm just like, well, if you hold on a little bit longer, it's about ready to open up something new.
I truly believe that. And when I look at that, people taking their own lives, I feel it's such a societal issue because we've lost the initiations. We've lost people taking them away to have a spiritual death.
Yeah.
And we are a death with a physical death because it feels like we're dying. It feels like we're getting ripped apart on that soul. And it's like, oh, there's nothing left. Like, I can't keep on living like this. And that's what a lot of people experience. It's what I experienced in that time. I want this to end. I'll do anything to let this end. And no one teaches us that that's the invitation for us to change, but to be like, what actually more is it? Can we find the truth within ourselves that's asking to come through? Can we meet that version that's like, hey, I want something more. I want to feel connected to the world, to the universe, to God, whatever word we have for it. But it feels that longing, and it's that invitation. And I'm so passionate about seeing people realize that, because when it's in that dark night, it's like, I'm dying, I've got to let it all go. And actually having that experience where it's like, it's only a spiritual death, it's only an ego death, it's only that part of us that is no longer serving, that wants to die, and something wants to rise from them ashes like a phoenix. And it doesn't feel like that at the time, though.
No.
Our task force is united in one simple philosophy, and that is, if we can save just one life, then our work has been successful. And that's really what we're set out to do.
You have a new song coming out of the darkness. What's that about?
So I got involved right when I came back to Christianity. I actually got involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And I wrote a song for them because have you ever heard of the Out of the Darkness walks?
No.
Okay, so they have these walks around the country that raise millions, like tons of money for mental health care and different things, but just to basically prevent people from ending their own lives. And so I wrote this song called Out of the Darkness, and it's inspired by the walks. And we're actually shooting the rest of the video tonight. But basically, it's just a song that is promoting what those walks do. And then also there's a suicide prevention number, 988. So we worked that number into the song somehow. And it's just to basically help people to not end their lives. Because I made a post, and it was basically just like, I believe Jesus is the answer, is the ultimate answer to everyone's problems. But in order to hear about Jesus, they got to be here. And so that's what this song isn't necessarily completely faith-based, but it's just what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it like the official song of the foundation. Yeah. And so hopefully people hear that and they can call the number, they can get help. And if I can become the face of that too, that's going to lead a lot of people to Christianity potentially. And that's the ultimate goal. But yeah, it's telling people come out of the darkness. That's all the chorus says. Or the chorus says, come out of the darkness 3 times. And then it says, it's never too late to come out of the darkness. So that's I
feel like God works in cycles. It's like in the Bible, we saw, there's life and then there's death. There's time to pluck up and there's time to plant. There's time to love. There's time to hate. Like we go through like all these different cycles, and sometimes we're going to be brought to that point of death, where we just feel like we cannot go anymore, so that we can just break that off of us, that pain and hurt, sadness. So, like I always like to tell people, it's like right whenever you get to that point where you can't go no more, that's usually the point where like things start opening up and you do start seeing the light,
Yeah. No, I believe that.
At this time, we're going to turn it over to Go Van Martin. He is the Executive Director for Suicide Prevention Alliance, and he's going to give a few remarks.
Thanks for being everybody. It really means a lot to me that you're here supporting the Somerset Suicide Prevention Task Force. Everything you do for the task force, whether you appear, whether you take a training, whether you're at an awareness event, means a lot, because hopefully what we can do with you just appearing is save lives, or just have a little bit more knowledge on what to do. So thank you all for being here, whether you're a task force member, whether you're been impacted by suicide. How many people have been impacted by suicide? Whether you've lost somebody to suicide, whether somebody's going through some issues right now, or whether you even attempted, we need to do more. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, where if nothing else, remember my name, how to pronounce it. Just think of Van, go backwards, Go Van. I'm the third and the last of my family. There's no more Go Vans going to come along the way, at least by me anyway. So again, what I'm here representing is a Suicide Prevention Alliance. I am also the founder, and I've been working with nonprofits for over 20 years now in suicide prevention. But this is kind of my baby, because I did found it. And one of the reasons I did is because I don't think that we're doing enough in suicide prevention. We're not talking about it. One of my themes is starting the conversation, because one of the biggest reasons why I'm here is I lost my brother to suicide 42 years ago, January 30th, 1980, and I came home one day from school and found him. And often the reaction that I got from that was, you know, I'm sorry, but that was it. That was the end of the conversation. Or when I would tell people who asked if I grew up with any siblings, I would say, you know, my brother died. You go, how did he die? By suicide. And the constant reaction was, oh. And that was it. It was the ultimate conversation stopper. So back in, you know, probably about 2002, I started working with state efforts for suicide prevention. But all they, you know, again, it's just getting the word out. And, you know, we need to do more. I talked with my hand, sorry, but I got my script in here. But the problem is that, you know, it's not just a conference. It's not just talk about suicide. We need to put together innovative efforts by people such as you. We need to be talking to you about what we can do better, about what we need to do. And I think that dog agreed with me. What we can do better to help people who are thinking about suicide, helping those loss survivors immediately after they lost a loved one to suicide, to know that there's loss survivor support groups in your county, but also to help those attempt survivors. They're often the ignored population in suicide prevention. We need to help them as well. So I'm really hoping that, and I know that knowing Michelle and Jesper, that they're doing great things and that they want to do more innovative things throughout your county. But the only way we can do that is with your help. That's why I came out here. I'm from Harrisburg, so I am committed not only to suicide prevention, but I'm committed to Somerset because I know people like Michelle. In fact, Michelle and Jesper are actually coming to Harrisburg. We're having an event in Harrisburg tomorrow at the Capitol at the Rotunda because we need to start the conversation. And the problem is that a lot of people do things during Suicide Prevention Month, and then that's it. We need to start talking about suicide prevention every day. We need to do better. And I'm not going to hog up the whole conversation, but I really want to end with one of my favorite quotes from Mr. Rogers. And I'm a Mr. Rogers kid growing up. And the quote is, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say, look for the helpers. Well, I'm looking at all these helpers out here, but more important than Michelle and Jesper, who lead these efforts, that they are the key helpers for suicide prevention in Somerset County. So also I'll leave with another favorite quote of mine, that no one can do everything, but everybody can do something. And if everybody does something, then together we can change the world. Go change the world. Do your part in helping Somerset County be a leader in suicide prevention. Thank you very much for being here. I'm happy to talk to you. Take care.
First of all, the biggest relief that I had was being able to talk and get it out. My scripture in the Bible that I hated was that confess your faults one to another. No, I'm not telling anybody anything. Nobody's going to have anything on me. Hated that scripture. Still don't like it. But there was a healing that took place. That when I sat down, and I actually sat down with a professional that knew how to handle my emotions, and I was able to open up and just get free from this stuff. That was a very healing process that I did not see coming. It's something that I did not see coming. I wasn't expecting it, wasn't planning on it. And if you would have told me that all you got to do is talk it out and you'll feel better, no, that can't be true, but it is. So I tell a lot of people now when they come up and ask me, what should I do? I say, you got to find somebody to talk to. Absolutely. Somebody that you can trust, somebody that doesn't know you, that doesn't know your family, doesn't know your situation. And you have simply got to get out what is inside of you. That was a big turning point for me, because I started feeling some peace that I haven't felt all my life. I mean, we're talking about being able to release things that I had inside of me that I was holding on to ever since I was a child. And so just being able to feel that release and that peace, I'm like, oh, this is what peace feels like. And all my life, being raised in church, being raised as a Christian, walking with the Lord, I thought I knew what peace was. I never knew what peace was until I started exercising that piece of scripture. And so that's what I tell people now. You have got to get a release from that. I say,
Absolutely.
find somewhere where you can talk it out, scream it out, do whatever you got to do, but you got to get this stuff out. And that's been a big proponent for me, is being able to talk, get it out, and get release from it.
OurDayDream.com. Tell me about that.
Yes. So basically, I was talking about like how the video's premise, the song's premise was based on letters that I had written to God in my time of just depression and trying to figure things out. Well, on mydeargodletter.com, a person will be able to go and write their own Dear God letter. If they're going through a certain thing that they don't feel like they can confide in anybody, it's just a place where they can clear their thoughts. A lot of times on social media, it's made to look like life is glossy and amazing and everything's good and we've got a filter for everything. But my Dear God letter is that place where people can go and just vent their frustrations. They can cry out to God, and I'm partnering with this thing called the Hope Line with this project. And what that is there's people that, like, round the clock counselors that people can talk to if they're having dark thoughts or going through a really hard emotional battle. There's modules about how to get mental health and, like, different things, explaining, the process of healing. And so I'm partnering with the Hope Line, and hopefully we're going to see people be real with their issues on mydeargodletter.com, because I really do believe that the first step to any kind of recovery is transparency. If we hide our problems and we continue to act like nothing's wrong, then it never gets fixed. But I want to have an outlet for people in this website where they can really just vent their problems and find the same healing that I've found writing my Dear God letters for all those years. And so that's what this is all about. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the Hope Line. If you're currently struggling, even before the campaign takes off, with thoughts that are bringing you down, or depression or divorce or whatever it is, and these a million things that we can deal with in life, I want to encourage anybody listening to this podcast to really reach out, take that first step, because oftentimes it can be like, oftentimes we just put it off until it's too late. And so maybe this is your intervention to just get real with yourself and, reach out for the help that you need.
Yeah. It's like stuff just kind of accumulates on top of you. I tell people all the time, I'm like, you carry one thing with you and you don't want to drop it. Then something else happens. You can't drop the first thing or the second thing, because you don't want to drop the first thing. Now you're carrying the second thing, and then something else happens and you're still carrying the first two things. So then you pick up another thing, and it's like at some point, you're gonna have to drop it because it gets too heavy. And so definitely transparency and like looking at stuff, but also seeing like what's beautiful inside of you, because God did design us so divinely.
Absolutely, man. And I just hope that, even after like the pandemic had taken place, there's been an uptick in just like depression and people, even the residual effects from that, people are really going through it. And so we just really wanted to provide a place where they can go, where they could write out their feelings. All that stuff is anonymous, so nobody's going to be snooping in on your letters or anything, but there is an opportunity for you to vent out your frustrations, to feel like sometimes just writing things out gets your thoughts clear. And so, and then if you want to reach out for that extra help, it's there. And like I said, don't ever hesitate, because like Andrea, like you were saying, one thing can lead to another and it kind of accumulates, and, ignoring a problem never makes it go away, man. We got to confront things head on.
Sometimes just talking is a good thing.
Yeah.
I have to admit that right? I'm a programmer. See, I just come into this. I'm just a volunteer.
Yeah.
I do programming, and I like to solve problems.
Right.
And if somebody presents a problem to me, I like to go into programming mode. You know, I like to say, this is something you can do. Well, sometimes all that's really needed
is to be heard.
is just to listen.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people, and people don't understand that either. It's like we're walking day to day, we're going to work, but you don't know what that person's dealing with at home. You know what I mean? No matter what their presentation is, and you don't know if they honestly have somebody to just hear that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there that feel judged based on their childhood raising. Yeah, and they just feel judged just because that was their program. It's like you could actually be wanting to give them love in that moment, but they're still feeling some sort of judgment in the room just based on that. And so, you know, just to be available to be like, how are you? You know?
Also, the thing is that we're trying to get to more and more is we're really promoting conversations.
Yeah.
Have the conversation. So maybe, you know, who might you feel comfortable with having that conversation?
Right.
Yes, there is a moment where you're cresting that hill to where feel like maybe I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if but what is the consequence?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you know, so there you are.
Yeah.
You know, and we just want to know. It's like I believe that it's somewhere right around 8 minutes. That whenever the moments come where that despair is there,
right?
All it takes is 8 minutes of, we'll call it interference,
right?
Just enough to move off of that impulse.
Yeah.
And the statistics, as far as I understand it, is that once an attempt has been, it might not be like made or initiated, but when it was presented,
yeah,
and if that 8 minutes and there was an interference there, that the likelihood of doing it again is very small.
Right.
It's very small. So all it takes, it's 8 minutes.
Right.
And you could just, think of that.
Yeah.
You know, and if you can save one life.
Right.
Yeah.
Call me an idealist, but I just feel like that, you know, it takes one voice to spread the message, and, you know, I think that should be it. Everybody should be getting involved in that.
Yeah.
Everybody on the planet. I think we really need to be more mindful of other people, and the fact that we don't all the time bear all the weight to people that say, how are you doing? Most oftentimes we'll say, I'm doing good. You know what I mean? And you're not. And so I really think that that's a societal thing that we just need to be more mindful of the fact that not everybody's got somebody to talk to, and everybody's dealing with stuff. It's, you know, just because they're not talking to you about it. But we should all be advocates for one another, because that's incredibly hard, going up to somebody or even calling a number and being like, man, I'm hurting and I don't know if I can make it through this next minute, you know. But if this is an everyday occurrence that people are kind to one another, people would be more prone to open up, I think. It's awesome. Thank you. Well, what's the song Miracle about?
I wasn't thinking that I was about to start a music career off of texting someone this. I said, you're not a mistake. You're a miracle. Open your eyes. You're beautiful.
Hold on when all the lights are gone, when all the fights rage on. A song of the night, hold on. Fires from the distant sun, just under the horizon. Wait for the dawn, when the love of power is eclipsed by the power of love. Eyes fixed to the east. All of that, like especially the love of power eclipsed by the power of love. And that's for me what I feel like is the break of day, and that we're just on the cusp of, and have been on the cusp of my whole life. Right onto the horizon is a light. We can't see it, but I know in my heart of hearts that light is there. Until now, I wait for the day star, that first star to come out before the sun rises, in hopes that all these things that are so wrong can be made right. All this thing that is so broken can be renewed.